Hello, everybody. Average Gamer here, and welcome to another Let's Play Supreme Ruler. But this is the Q&A video. So I got a lot of questions, good and bad. A couple of them had, yeah. Long story short, so we got a lot of PMs. Only a couple comments in the video, but nonetheless, as of this moment, I've got about 10 that really stuck out. That I want to answer. There were a couple little tiny ones that I'll throw in that are in there, but overall there was 10. I think it was 10 specifically that cut that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There was 11, sorry, in total that kind of stuck out, and I thought our original Let's Play, the China Let's Play, is the Let's Play that can pretty much answer, in my eyes, all of these questions. At least I can utilize the abilities in this thing. So the first question was, how do you properly adjust the economy to not get too hot? So basically, for those who ask, or who are asking or inquiring about that, that's basically when you're basically everything gets too expensive. You're not making much money. Your unemployment is really, really low, near zero, or at least below, in my eyes, 2.5%. And your inflation is ridiculously high, like in the 18%, 20%, 30%. And it's just climbing. How do you properly adjust for that economy? Basically, when your economy is growing at just a substantial rate, how do you slow it down? How do you keep it in control? Well, there's a couple things I do. The first thing I do is I look at my GDP. So we'll pick China here as an example. So right here, our GDP is 11,381, but our overall inflation is 10.9%, which is still really high. First, you have to understand is what is GDP and what is inflation. So your GDP, your gross domestic product, is basically the average amount, or at least simulated in this game, what the average person has to spend money-wise. So the average person in China in 1987, in our current China playthrough, is $11,381 annually, is how much money they make. Now our economy is growing at 10.9% a year. So theoretically, our GDP should be increased by this time next year by 10.9%. Now, the inflation rate will increase and decrease depending on a lot of factors. Inflation is basically the indicator as to how fast your economy is growing. The higher the inflation, the faster your country is growing. Now, the best way to look and see how hot your economy is to look at that inflation. So right now it's 10.9%. It's getting pretty hot. Anything in my eyes above 15, it can get you into a danger zone real fast. With high inflation comes obviously higher production costs and things like that, which can really, really cause some problems in the long term. In the short term, it does cause a little bit of some complexities and stuff like that, but you can overcome them in the short term usually. But long term, gains are usually the better things you want to do. So a couple things I do. Number one, I want to take money out of people's hands. The more money they have, the more money they spend, aka the higher the demand for stuff. The more demand, the more things are purchased. The more things are purchased, the more companies make. The more companies make, the more they pay their employees. It's a big circle, and the GDP just keeps going and going and going. First thing I want to do is take money out of everyone's hands. So I increase my domestic prices. So for example, food here. Food in China is currently sitting at a 100% domestic price increase. I use this as a very good gauge. I will basically remove the ability, or kind of remove some of the ability for people to purchasing. Remove some of their purchasing power. It lowers your GDP a little bit, but it also slows your economy down. Once your economy gets way too hot and way out of control, you will end up with a crash. Something bad's going to happen. You're going to end up with no money because things are just going to skyrocket price-wise. You're not going to be able to sell anything internationally because everything internationally is being built cheaper. It'll be cheaper for you to import stuff, so you end up shutting down businesses and all that stuff. And basically, you starve your country to death on success. So this way you can kind of curb it, basically by taking money out of the hands of the people. So here, I increased domestic prices. Then I also increased my taxes. Right now we're sitting at 30%. I believe here I was actually trying to increase our inflation and stuff like that. So our GDP and stuff. So mind you, this is not the exact thing, but I would increase up to a good number to slow the economy down. And then I'd also decrease social spending too, as well. The higher social spending you get all these little bonuses with, you know, research and the education, and more educated people are, the more money they're going to want. So you can reduce all these social services. Those take a lot longer to kind of impact the game, but in the end, impact your game for a more positive impact on a rapidly hot economy. So once again, increase domestic prices, increase taxes, and decrease social spending are the three main things I do to cool an economy down. Problem is that if you do them too much, it will crash, and you could end up with deflation. Which brings me to the next thing, is how to reduce inflation. Well, it's almost the exact same way as how to cool an economy. They're pretty much the exact same thing. If your inflation's too high, that means your economy is growing too much, as I said. So one thing you want to do is, well, you want to increase your unemployment. That's one of the major things you want to do. Sometimes you got to switch over some of these industrial things to tell them, I don't want you to go to capacity. I want you to go to demand. And they'll start shutting things down for you. That's a thing. Turn off factories. Turn off production facilities. Make people unemployed. That causes your GDP to go down. That will also revert and impact your inflation rate. If your expenditure is steadily increasing as well, so I'm talking about if you go basically over here in general, expenditures. If your expenditures are steadily increasing, that's going to cause your inflation to go up. So what you want to do is you want to keep your expenses and your expenses and your income relatively close. Usually, to keep inflation in check, I usually keep my tax rate, as you can see here, anywhere from 29 to 50%, 30 to 60%. And domestic prices, you can put them high or put them a little low. Catch-22 is, the lower your taxes, the higher the demand for stuff. So you always got to pay attention to that. One of the good things about this game when it comes to inflation and GDP and economy and all that stuff, every little thing affects everything. So you make one little change, say in taxes, that will have a large impact on a lot of things, but then everything else will have some things, right? So you lower your taxes, but now all of a sudden your domestic, demand goes up, sorry. So you make more money on domestic demand because people are getting taxed less, so they want to spend more money, right, on consumer goods and food and power and gas for their car and stuff like that. So, I mean, the lower taxes, the more you make for domestic stuff. But catch-22 there is, people are also probably getting paid more money. Your GDP is going to go up. Inflation is going to take a hit. Basically, inflation on its own will naturally decrease once your country gets to a certain point. If you keep taxes at a set rate, you keep your domestic prices set at a certain rate, and you just watch your expenditure versus your income and keep those as close to possible, and almost try to keep almost a net zero. Basically, you want this number up here to stay as close to zero as possible when it comes to going up or down. You kind of want it to kind of bounce up, down, up, down, up, down as like really, really close. Overall, basically, make sure that your deficit and surplus, make sure that's as close to zero as possible. If you can make things as close to zero as possible when it comes to how much trades you make and all that stuff, your economy will, even if it's the hottest thing going right now and it's like 80-90% inflation, it will start to cool as well, which is a good thing. So another question was asked was, when someone tries to build a facility, they get a thing that says maximum possible output. So they wanted to know what maximum possible output meant. So we're going to zoom in here. We're going to highlight this right here. We're going to click here and we're going to highlight. So right now, the maximum possible output for this timber mill is 484,808 meters cubed per ton of timber. Okay, cool. They want to know exactly what was this number? Why is this the number? And how do I get to that number? How do I know it's at the number? Well, you can't really tell what the number is. The only way to figure out which one it is by removing all the buildings around it and removing everything, like removing every timber mill in the game, and to figure out what just that one timber mill is producing. Now, what I can tell you is this. For this timber mill to reach the 434,000 meters cubed of timber, I believe that's per day. It might actually be per year. No, it's per day because I have it set to per day. A couple things. Number one, that is the assumption that this timber mill will be in 100% supply. Right now, it's currently sitting at 89%, so it's close. Number two, it has enough workers. Now, mind you, we do have unemployment right now, so it could be getting impacted, but it doesn't really tell you, right, if this specific facility has enough people or not. Kind of wish it did, but it doesn't. It says it's 100% active. Or sorry, it's active and it's at 100%. Usually 100% just means it's not damaged. And last but not least, oh yeah, as I mentioned, yeah, it is annual. Sorry, it is annual. So that's an annual amount that it will do. So annually, if this thing is at 100% capacity or 100% supply, basically being supplied wood, and it's in the actual supply area, as you can see here, as we scroll out, we got the little pink here. If it's in a 100% supply area, which you can kind of tell it's not, it has 100% of its workers, it will theoretically output 434,808 meters cubed of wood a year. So that's what that is. Just as long as you meet those two criteria, 100% supplied in the hex it's in, and it has enough workers. It had 100%. No problem. No big deal. Next one was how do you add more research slots into your nation? So every country starts automatically with one default research slot. The way to get more research slots is pretty simple, actually. See these buildings right here? Research centers. They add more research slots. Right now, I actually have 23 research slots because I have 22 buildings that add the slots. Every building can take on one project, and then there's one default slot for every country automatically. That is the answer to that one. How to issue more bonds. So there's two ways. There's one way mainly to issue bonds. Number one, you go to your finance tab, click your minister, and click this little button right here, and you issue a new bond. The other question was, how much is the bond for, and can you change the bond amount? Not really. You pretty much can click it. We'll unpause, and then we'll pause it again. Oh, hold on 1 second. There we go. So as you can see here, it's a set amount. It's for $47 billion. Let's pay that off. There we go. So the way that is set up is it actually looks at your credit rating and things like that, which we can get into as well. I believe that's for the bank. So right here, our credit rating is 150%. Our maximum available per day, as you can see, is 47,482. That's the maximum we can take out per day against our line of credit, basically. And overall, we have a rating of 150%. So the higher your credit rating, the lower your interest, and the higher the amount you can borrow. It's kind of like a credit card. Basically, the better your credit is in real life, the higher your credit card limit, and the lower your interest rate. At least that's how it works up here in Canada. That's exactly what they did with the bonds, which is pretty good. Will strategic bombers on patrol bomb buildings? No, they will not. You have to actually give the strategic bombers the order to actually bomb a hex. I don't know if I have any strategic bombers deployed here. I got some foxhounds, fighters. Here we go. So, for example, this H5 here, I have to actually order it and tell it, hey, bomb the hex or bomb the facility at this location. And then you'll see it'll fly over and it will bomb the facility. But there's no enemy facility there, so I'm just going to tell it to go back to base. Now, it will not hit a target on the way unless it's on patrol. Now, usually what you want to do is use strategic bombers to hit facilities, bridges, stuff like that. You know, industrial locations. But then you want to use for ground units, you know, tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, infantry, artillery, whatever. You want to use tactical bombers. Those are things like, those are fighters. You know what, let's go into our construction. This is just a lot easier. So here you want to use tactical bombers. So here we have the Flounder, the Thunder Chief, the Thud, the Supreme Tiger, and the Kite. Tactical bombers are more for attacking units and, you know, warships, things like that. And then multi-role aircraft kind of do, they're kind of the jack of all trades. They're not great at anything, but they're good at everything. Multi-role aircraft are pretty much what aircraft are now. Pretty much almost all aircraft out there are multi-role, that are mainstream, we'll say. And I don't mean, and I'm excluding, you know, your specialty aircraft like your F-22, even though that's technically multi-role because it does have the JDAM satellite control bomb that it can carry. So, but things like the F-14. The F-14 Tomcat, for example, even though later in its years it was given the capacity to shoot down missiles, that's still a air superiority fighter. So that is an interceptor. Interceptors just shoot down other aircraft and just shoot down missiles. That is it. Helicopters can do a whole bunch of other stuff, but tactical bombers, once again, they can defend themselves against other aircraft, but they're mainly used to hit targets. Multi-role fighters can do it all, but they're not really the greatest at anything. Strategic bombers, hitting ground targets. Obviously, patrol and AWAC units are next on the list. Alright, the next one is how can I improve diplomatic reputation? Money. Best way to improve diplomatic relations with countries, or actually, and also how to influence as well my diplomatic reputation. Number one, if you're playing a game on peaceful, don't declare, sorry, if you're playing a game, number one, don't declare war on everybody. The moment you declare a war on someone, depending on what your volatility and diplomatic settings are on in the game, things will go downhill really fast for you. Your science that you research as well also will have an impact. As you can see here. So, for example, for world opinion, if it's negative of the research, that's going to negatively impact everybody in the world. Everyone in the world will look down at you if you're researching chemical weapons. Makes sense, right? Everyone will look highly at you if you're researching a bunch of medical stuff to make your people live longer and better and faster or stronger, you know, all that stuff. Giving money to countries, just giving them money and saying, "Here, have some cash," that makes them like you. Using the support/condemn option, that is a biggie now as well. If you see another country do something and you support it, the country that is being basically is the opposite. Like, say, for example, Somalia here goes to war with Ethiopia or does a nuclear test. We support Somalia. Ethiopia, who they're at war with, will get a negative hit on that, but Somalia will get a big buff to our relations because we're saying, "Good job, Somalia. You're good. You're a nice guy." Now that will increase your diplomatic standing with that country. Overall, your actions, more than anything, will impact the world around you. If you're building up a lot of military weapons, that will affect everything. If you're doing a lot of trade, like tons of trade and with technology, with resources, with all sorts of stuff, minus military equipment, everyone's going to love you. If you start selling military equipment and become almost like a weapons dealer, people aren't going to like that, and that's going to impact the game as well. So you have to think about things like that. But mainly right now, my main thing is the support condemn options are a real big thing in the game. But other than that, doing a lot of trade and lots of money. If you do trade with a bunch of countries that don't like you, but you constantly let them rip you off because you can afford it, then they'll like you. How does diplomatic merchant marine work, and should I have it on? Basically, merchant marine is you can probably see it here working a little bit. I've got some Cuban aircraft in this area and Haitian aircraft as well. Basically, what it is diplomatic merchant marine. If it's turned on, it's realistic. It's kind of like a realistic mode for trading of units. So if I sell a bunch of units to Cuba and Haiti and anybody else, if I trade those units and sell them to those countries, what then happens is the unit then basically leaves the base it was in reserve at and will travel to its location. So these things here have been stuck in my country now for very, 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 very long time. And I'm talking like 10 years. They've been stuck in our country. That's the reason why you shouldn't have it on. What basically happens is you turn it on, you sell some units to another country, and the units just sit in your country because they have no supply, and they can barely move out of your country overall. So in the end, it's a very, very big hindrance in my eyes to the game when it comes to that. IOF is turned off so that it just transfers the equipment right away to where it needs to go, and you're good to go. Basically, 9 times out of 10, whoever the seller is, the equipment gets stuck there anyway, so there's no point. On slower game speed, does the game become more accurate and precise than on higher speeds? Multiplayer, no. On multiplayer, the game is set as is. On single player, yes. So for single player, if you're playing at anything from very fast down, the game calculates everything the exact same. On single player, if you put it in fastest, it actually recalculates the game a little bit. So certain units are more basically just an improvement boost, so that AA can target units when they can and all that stuff. How do you set up your nuclear arsenal? Well, let's show you. You go to your land tab and hit your strategic targeting button. Right now I've got 96 pieces of artillery here that can all put on nuclear missiles. I can click one and move one at a time over. Unpause. Let's unpause. And you'll notice each one slowly will go over to the right. Or I can hit this button, just have them all fly over. And now I have 149 artillery style nuclear, basically mobile launch platforms. And we have our strategic platforms, basically our bombers, and then we have our submarines. Now, once you put them in this pool here, they're no longer available to you, which is one of the few things I am not a fan of. To add a missile, click it, click what it is, and click the arrow if you want to move one or all of them over. Simple. Pretty easy. And that's about it. As for silos, now silos are a little different. The way silos work is you have to build the silo somewhere and basically defend it. And that's it. For single player, it's not much of a big deal. For silos, you pretty much can right click somewhere, build, military, missile silo. We have a bunch of these missile silos. Oh, geez, I can't remember how to... where are our missile silos? We've got a whole bunch of them. I can't remember where all of them are right now off the top of my head. But that's our... There is a way to filter, and I can't remember the filter option. Visibility, high ground, garrison overlay, nope. Map loyalty, ownership, site. It's been a while. It's been a while. It's battle zone overlay. Was it? Well, we actually don't have any silos, so that actually makes more sense. I just realized. Yeah, so for silos, it's actually pretty easy. You build your silo. We'll build one right here, actually. There we go. Usually what I'll do is I'll also build some sort of defense for it. So usually I'll go military. I'll usually throw 2 silos in one spot. Then I'll also build a modern radar station with it. And I'll also build a barracks. That way we can have some garrison troops. An air defense. And an airbase. So we have an actual full complex based around these 2 missile silos. And we'll station all our missiles there. I'll usually station a couple divisions of aircraft, a couple divisions and a couple aircraft. Usually some intercept aircraft that are there to basically shoot down anything coming at that missile silo. Now, mind you, building military things around the world as well. So building anything on your military thing here will also impact diplomatic standing with other countries. If you're building military facilities all over the place, it's going to cause impact. And if I remember correctly, there's also an impact with where you build it. So the closer the country is to where you build it, the more it will impact that country. Just like I was going to mention this. I believe it is the espionage stuff. So, for example, depending on where your academies are and all that stuff, the further away you are from them, the worse, basically, the worse the spies get. Best way to set up air defenses. All right, so air defenses break down into 3 sections, right? You have your radar, then you have your altitude, then you have your anti-aircraft, basically your AAA. So the way I set it up is this. First, I want to be able to detect. Then I want to be able to figure out who it is. Is it a high-flying aircraft? Is it a low-flying aircraft? Is it a medium-flying aircraft? And then I want to be able to shoot it down. Now, what you want to do is interweb your anti-aircraft. I believe we're doing that over here in the US where we're fighting right now. So right now, as you can see here, I have an S-400 Triumph. Let's bring up its stuff here. So right now, it is a 63 against close air attack aircraft. It has a 22 attack against a mid-air range attack. It has a 2 attack on a high air attack piece of equipment. Now, usually what I'll do, see if I can find another one in here somewhere. I'm in the process of setting up a massive push into the American East Coast, so I may not have any anti-aircraft with these guys. The whole thing was me trying to do an aggressive push while also supplying support at the same time. Those are only SA-400s. Okay, let's do it this way. S-500s. So here we go. Same thing as the S-400. Mechanized. Am I only building S-400s for some reason? Or 500s? That's because I already had the close and medium range equipment. air defense. So what you want to do is look at a few things. Like this towed gun here is really good and only good for low-flying aircraft. This SA-2, for example, is really good at medium-range aircraft. And then the PDZ-77 is good for medium-range aircraft as well. You're good for only close-range aircraft. And yet again, this guy's good for kind of everything across the board. Basically what you want to do is you want to intermix, right? So if you know you have a unit specifically good for low flying aircraft, you put low flying air, you set it up, right? You need to have the radar, obviously, to have them see the target and engage it. So usually what you do, if we set our thing to line of sight, you can see our line of sight here in China, not the best. We can pretty much see all of where we have here, and then it kind of gets sparsed out. If you look over here, our line of sight where we're fighting the war right now is pretty good. We can see everything that we can kind of see. Our satellites are also seeing a lot of stuff that we can engage. So here we're using our radar to detect. One thing you always want to do too, and I want to mention, is mobile radar with artillery. That's one thing I didn't do in the game here, is if you have mobile artillery, so yeah, like if here we have our 400 millimeter MLRS system. Oh, here we go. There's the our specialist for close-in aircraft when they go do their bombing runs. So basically what you want to be able to do is detect your target, utilize what you're going to shoot it down with, so the aircraft or AAA, and then you want to be able to engage them when they're at their altitude. So basically you want to see them, figure out where they're, what kind of aircraft it is, what altitudes they're flying at, and you'll be able to, obviously be able to target them. One thing you also want to do too, mobile anti-aircraft is good. Just like mobile, nuclear launchers are good. They're hard to target, and harder to suppress in case of an engagement. Playing single player, your AA, you don't have to worry too much about it as long as you have them kind of set up with some mobile radar and all that stuff. They're pretty good. You're pretty laughing. I usually do an SA4, like an S400 and S500, for example, with something specifically designed for close range or for low flying targets, like attack helicopters that are going to try and suppress and do a seed attack, a suppression of air defense. That's your main worry, is basically seed attacks. Any attack that enemy uses to suppress your anti-aircraft, you want your anti-aircraft to be able to see them and take them out before they have a chance to do anything. But yeah, so those were the main questions that we were asked. So once again, thank you for everyone for your questions. I might do another one again next month if anyone has any questions. Any questions that are asked between now and next month, I'll probably do another Q&A next month just to throw it in there. I also want to mention that starting next week on Monday, I'm actually going to start up a second campaign for Supreme Ruler Ultimate. We're going to play as my home country of Ontario in the Shattered World of 2020. I think it's the 2020. That's only a couple of years from now. So we're going to do the 2020 scenario. We're going to do a very peaceful playthrough, but the plan is, theoretically, our plan is to re-amalgamate, unify, we'll say, Canada, whether it be by force or by arrangements, we'll say. That'll be the plan. That'll be the hopes. If we had to go to war, we'll have to go to war. We will invade. We will conquer. And if any states in the U.S. decide they want to get involved and attack us, then we will have no problem with defending ourselves. But our primary objective in that campaign will be to unify Canada. And once Canada is unified, that'll pretty much be it. We'll be good. We'll be happy. It'll be the way we want things. The world's going to be set to, everything will be kind of set to neutral, meaning that the AI will be pretty much set right from the beginning to just kind of react to how we're going to be playing, and everything will be set to normal. Nothing too crazy, nothing too fancy. But the plan will be to unify my country. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next episode, or next video. Bye bye.